So just come up to 7 o'clock because I was late getting in because of all my wardrobe changes. So let's see. Right, well what I'm going to do tonight is I'm actually going to continue the zippers that I did last week because we basically looked at how to put them in on the serger with the cording foot. It's a good method, but it's sometimes problematical. So what I thought I'd do this week is I'm going to look at heavier zippers, and I'm going to look at putting them in jackets. Sort of, they may not be heavy, but those open-ended separating zippers, because we have to treat those slightly differently, and it's better to put them in a certain way. So what I want to do is look at that. But the other thing to this whole method I'm going to use tonight is it's totally different to how I did it last week. And if you happen to be working with a knit that you are having real problems putting a zipper in, this is another way to do it. And I think this is a great way because I've worked on it all day, and I think I've cracked it. So let me just say that knits, the notes for this will be up tomorrow morning or later tonight. I just want to add something in before I give it to you. So I will do that after class and then I will put it up. But they will go into the file section of my group, Deb Canham Serger Sanity Projects, because there isn't a file section on this public page. Okay, so that's going to work. So let me just get to the start. So the first thing to remember is not all knits are equal, and that's one of the big problems with knits. You can go from a very fine slinky knit, having to put a zipper in that, to a fleece or something like that. So they do vary. So whatever I teach you tonight, or you learn tonight, or you want to try tonight, remember you're still going to need to experiment a bit. Okay, the next rule, so rule number 1 is if you're going to use a zipper, get one that matches the weight of your knit. Now in the case of a jacket, even though you think big jacket separating zipper, you can get light ones, okay? They don't have to be the really heavy sports weight. So look out for a lightweight zip. And the other rule is if you're going to use a plastic zipper, it needs to be at least 4 inches longer than the area you're putting your zip into, because we have those metal pulls at one end and we have a little bit of metal at the other end, and we don't want those anywhere near our serger. So that's the rule. So therefore there needs to be plenty of extra room on the zipper. Now that works really well if you're just putting a zipper in the top section of a fleece jacket or something and there's a seam that comes across, but it's not so easy with a separating zipper. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you some things I did today on a zipper. I'm just going to talk about them because they're basically last week's, but I just want to run through it again with you, just touching on it. So I'm going to turn you over to the other camera and we're going to have a look at what's on my table. So let me move my notes. Right, here on the table I have 2 zippers, and I put these in using the cording foot on one. Okay, on one I use the cording foot, and that would be this one, I think. So no, it's this one. I use the cording foot. Now remember, when you use the cording foot and you're using a big zipper like this with big teeth, you have to use a narrow stitch. Otherwise your stitch is going to go into the teeth. So I used the cording foot, I used a 3-thread narrow, and I put this zipper in. And here you can see on this side, that's how it looks, and it looks pretty good. But I think it always is better if you top stitch it in. So on this side, I top stitched it in using Actually, I used a cover stitch narrow to do it. So I think that's pretty successful. I can actually see a small pleat there, and I'm going to tell you that just so you know, because I think I have a way of getting rid of that next time. And then on this one, I thought perhaps it may be better if I used a 4-thread overlock and not use the cording foot, but actually have the edge, let me show you on this side, the edge of the zipper level with the edge of the fabric and sew it that way, because I thought that would give me a slightly bigger area here. And again, I top stitched it. And again, I caught some little wrinkles just here. So I just want you to know about that. That's not what I'm going to do tonight. I pointed out those wrinkles, and we will deal with those in a minute. So let me move on to the next thing. So inserting a zipper on something that has an end that opens. Now this isn't going to open because you can see I cut it off. Let me find the other one which I haven't. Okay, I don't have one. But this was actually my failed one, but I'm going to use that as an example. But quite often in jackets you have this opening section at the bottom. And the problem with that is that we don't have any extra zipper to play with. So when we sew it on the serger, we always have an extra bit here that we can steer off and cut level. But when you're working with a separating zipper, the end of the zipper has to be level with the end of the tape. It's just the way of it. There is no safety area. So I'm just bringing that up as a subject, okay? I'm just mentioning it. So that's one of the problems. The other problem is you can get puckers as you sew because the top level can sometimes stretch. I've mentioned dealing with the open end. And I just want to say that if you use pins sometimes, it just encourages the fabric to walk. So I've basically covered the problems that I had to deal with. So what did I do? What I did was I ended up, this one failed, okay, this one failed. I got these puckers along here, so that was no good. So this is my completed successful one, and I think you'll agree it's pretty neat, and you can't see any wrinkles, and it's actually quite firm, which really helps support the zipper. So how did I get to that? So first of all, I'm just going to have a quick look at questions. Oh, apparently my headset's giving you problems.
Humming, apparently.
Humming. Is that better? Is that working better? Okay, so let me just carry on. I can get that corrected over time. This is the successful one, and this is the one I want to show you. Now, if you could probably already worked out that I use cover stitch to do this. Now, if you have a serger, don't turn off, because I can get you exactly the same thing. All right, so keep with it. If you have a serger, you're going to go through exactly the same preparation that I'm going to show you now. Okay, so what I did was I took a piece of fabric. Okay, the first thing I did was I did the hem, because you're going to need to have the hem finished at the time that you want to put this zipper in. Okay, so I finished the hem, and in fact for this sample I've used some steamer seam and just fused it up. So the next thing I did was I got some of that fusible tape that you can get, and I fused the whole of my zipper area Okay, so I fused it to the edge, and this is an inch tape, inch wide tape, and I just would fuse it all the way down the zipper, except not into the hem area. Okay, I didn't go into the hem area, and there was a reason for that. So imagine that's my zipper seam. I'm going to fuse that tape to the edge, and I know you're going to ask me which tape it is, and it is, I use the Sokeys tape, and the name of it will be in the file, but it's 1 1/4 inches wide, and it's basically a stay tape, and what it does is it fuses to the fabric, and it stabilizes the knit. It still has a bit of stretch in it, but it stabilizes it. So I put that down the edge of the zipper on both sides, okay, but not into the hem, and I fused it. And then I folded it in half. Okay, so this is basically the piece that I am going to put on my zipper, like that. All right, so just running over it again. I finished the hem. I applied the fusible tape that I talked about to the edge, then but not into the hem. It stops just here. And I folded it in half, and I really pressed it well, and I used a clapper, because the clapper is going to get that hem area real flat, which is going to prevent any problems I might have later. Right. The next thing I did was I actually sewed that, and I had a problem with puckers in this area. Okay, so I did this previously, and I found it did pucker because the top layer of fabric moved against the bottom. Okay, so this is what I did. I took some Elmer's washable school glue, and I just put it along this edge. The hem's there, okay? I put some on the hem because I want the hem to seal down, and I put some along this edge. And you can see I'm using a really good purple color. And I want to tell you that it dries clear. But it's great for demo because you can all see what I'm doing. So then I folded that over, pressed it all down. I actually did press it just to really get it flat. And I'm going to leave it to dry, okay? So I fused down that tape. I attached that tape to itself and fused it down. And I fused the hem down just directly on the fabric because there's no tape in the hem. Okay, there we go. So they're pretty much finished. All I need to do now is get the zipper underneath those two pieces of fabric. Now, this doesn't have a pull at the end, but imagine it does, okay? And all I did with this was, I got that old Elmer's glue again, and I just put it down the zipper. Whoops, I got it in the teeth there. That wasn't very clever, but it will come out. This is washable, so when I wash it, it's going to wash out, but it is going to dry clear, okay? Don't think I've lost my mind putting purple. And then I'm going to put that on top of the tape, but I want to give it a little bit of further pull, because the pull's bigger than the teeth. So I've got over 1/8 of an inch gap between the teeth and that side, and I'm just going to move that up a bit. I want the bottom to be lower than the bottom of the zipper, okay? Just lower than the bottom of the zipper. Now I did do this one time using steamer seam, and it was fiddly. It's much quicker to use this, and it actually, I was able to fuse it better because it was wider than the 1/4 inch steamer seam that I had, which doesn't always hold as well, even though I pressed it. And I just found this method to be quick and easy. Okay, so Now, at this point, you're going to let it dry. Let it dry. Don't use it wet in your machine. And as I said, make sure the bottom of the zipper is just fractionally up. Perhaps not quite as much as that, but let me have a look at my good one. My good one, I had it up maybe 1/4 of an inch up from the bottom. So I'm going to leave that to dry, and then when it's dry, it's going to look like this one. Which I have somewhere. Here. It's going to look like this one. This one is actually just glued. I haven't even sewn it. I was thinking it was the one I'd finished. I haven't even sewn it yet. So what to do next? What I'm going to do next is I'm going to cover stitch it. But if I don't have a cover stitch, then I'm going to use my sewing machine. And if I had a twin needle, that would be perfect. And I would just sew very close to the tape down here. Very close to the edge of the fabric on the tape, I should have said. And just sew down. So you can do either cover stitch narrow, and I'm just about to demo that, or if you don't have cover stitch, I see absolutely no reason not to use your sewing machine. And I know I often say don't take your knits anywhere near a sewing machine, but I think what you have to understand is this is very well stabilized. It's stabilized with the tape, but it's also stabilized with the glue. And when you wash this garment, the glue will come out. And even before it comes out, it's still very usable. That's the one I've just done. That's the one I did earlier. Oh, here we go. But what I liked about using this method was I didn't get any puckers. I didn't get any puckers at all because it was all glued down. And it's a nice firm seam for holding that zipper, but I wouldn't say it's super thick or anything. It's quite thin. So I'm going to take a few questions just in case I need to change or explain something again, and then I'm going to go and I'm going to cover stitch it. But as I said, if you don't have cover stitch, then you will be just fine using your sewing machine. So bring you around to me. I'm going to ask Rich if he's had any questions. No, yes, the elm is glued. Definitely let it dry first. I use it all the time in sewing. I really, really like it. It's a lot more affordable and easier to find than fabric glue. And I find some of the fabric glues have a resin in them to speed up drying. And that resin can dry really seriously hard, like rock hard sometimes. And it doesn't always wash out, whereas this washes out. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move you on to I'm actually going to use the Triumph today, but it doesn't matter which machine you have. I would advise you to have the chain cover foot, whichever machine it is, because it's a narrower foot. And what I'm going to basically do is run that foot alongside the teeth. So the narrow foot is to the advantage. So moving you over to the machine. Oops, sorry. Right, so I'm set up and I have cover stitch narrow, and I'm using the 1 and 2 needles. And the first thing I need to do is I need to pull on my threads so that I can make space to get my project under there. So I'm just going to just release those front threads a bit, needle threads, and that will allow me to pull on that thread chain. My foot is up, and I'm going to put this, make sure my needles are high. I'm going to put this, and I'm going to stop it so that the edge of the foot is against the teeth, and the teeth are going to be my guide. And I'm going to just stitch down here and off the end. Okay, now we'll see what happens. But I do just want to say this. Sometimes you do see a little bit of movement. Now I'm not, because I've glued down both sides. But if you do, just lift your foot to release it, okay? I'm not having that problem at the moment because everything is glued down and I let it dry. Okay, I'm creating a thread chain because what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take a needle and tuck that thread chain behind the stitches in the back there. And then what I need to do is sew this other side, and I'm going to actually turn my garment round because I need it to go so that the that side is closer to the teeth. And I'm not worried about movement because I've glued it. Everything's glued and secured. Right. Whoops. Just encouraging it over that first bit. At that point, I could have used a hump jumper. So just let me show you one of those. This is a hump jumper. That might have helped it. It was coming in on the thick seam there. And that might have helped. Or I could have used a piece of folded up fabric. I didn't have a problem earlier, so I wasn't expecting it just now. But it happens. So a hump jumper. So I'm just coming up the other side, and you can see I'm not getting any movement in the knit. Steer off. And that is my zipper in, okay? And you can see it's super easy. But my other point on all this is, let me put it down the table. My other point on all this is if you have a problem any time doing any zipper, then this is a great method to try because it just takes away the stretchiness, which is obviously sometimes the problem, and it gives you a nice firm basis to put your fabrics on. So as I say, if you don't have cover stitch, then use the sewing machine. But I think this is all about preparation. It's all about using the fusible on the knit. It's about gluing in the fabric both on the top here and the underside. It's just a question of securing everything. Okay, so I am going to look at questions. Right. Yeah, my new mic, because it's attached to my head, it doesn't go in and out like my old one did. And my old one died last week. So are there any questions on that knit? So, I mean, although I said to you, oh, you can put this in the front of a jacket, an open-ended zipper, you could actually use this method on any application of the zipper. You know, if you wanted to do, well, no, not any application, if you choose to do it this way, in other words, do the preparation, stabilize the edges, turn the seam over, and glue the zipper in. Okay. Could you please demo the hump jumper? Yes, I can. Okay, so I'm going to turn you around, and I'm going to go here. Right, so this is the hump jumper, and you can see it has a gap here. So if I'm going into something that perhaps has a very high ride onto it, like or over a thick seam, it will help to use the hump jumper at the back here. And I'm not planning on actually sewing in this gap. These are very long, so I just literally pop it under there like I would a piece of fabric, and I just keep stitching, okay? And as I stitch, it's going to move out, and then if that's the case and I still need it, I would just raise my foot and put it back again. But the idea of a hump jumper is we have a long old foot here, and when it goes up at the front, it looks in at the back. So the more that we can level it off, the better we'll be. How would you handle a banded jacket? Well, you know, just so happens I have one of those. So let me get it. something always falls down. Right, so this one, you can see it's actually a metal zipper, okay? And I always tell you, don't use metal zippers. Well, I have to break rules. It's just in my nature. So what I did with this one is it has quite a wide band. So what I did was I made a band. This black band is actually a single piece of fabric, okay? So I attached it using flat lock stitch. You can just about see the flat lock stitch. I flat locked it to the zipper, and then I put that band into my jacket. But you'll see at the bottom, I had that same problem. I couldn't have that just finish here. So what I did was, if you could see it, the zipper is cut on the underside, and I sewed a band on to cover that raw edge of the zipper. Right, well, I don't think I'm getting any questions, but I think that's a great method. You know, if you glue it in and you fuse it and it can't move,